So, in light of the Derek Chauvin trial, which is underway, I've been doing some thinking. I was thinking about the movie A Time to Kill with Samuel L. Jackson and Matthew McConaughey. Been a long time since I saw that movie, but I'll always remember it. And I was thinking in particular about the courtroom scene at the end of the movie where Matthew McConaughey was giving his closing argument. And in that argument, he talks about what happened to Samuel L. Jackson's daughter. And at the end of that argument, he says, "Now imagine that she's white." I'll always remember that. And I'll always remember that because throughout our history in this country, there seems to be a lack of compassion for Black people. You can go all the way back to slavery and just look at that. Now, why is this important in reference to the trial at hand and in reference to George Floyd? Some of the comments that I've seen on Twitter, Facebook, making excuses for what the officer did. Some of the comments I've seen from people saying that, well, George Floyd was an addict, so his life doesn't matter. People like Candance Owens, who said he's an addict, so we shouldn't have sympathy. I want to make something very clear here. A lot of people in this country struggle with addiction. Everybody has a past. But in this situation in particular, George Floyd's past has nothing to do with what happened in this incident. I want to make that very clear. George Floyd was not arrested for drugs. George Floyd was arrested for using a counterfeit bill, something he may or may not have known about, but we'll never know because he's dead. When people come up with those phrases and those excuses as to why it was okay with what the officer did, you have to ask yourself, why are they doing that? Where is the compassion? Some people have tried to make this a left and right issue. This should not be a left or right issue. This is a situation where a police officer, someone who's supposed to serve and protect, killed a man who was already handcuffed and was on the ground. A man who said, "I can't breathe." And he continued to press his knee on his neck. And if you go back and you watch the video, and I know it is not easy to watch, but you watch the video of the look in that officer's face while he was being filmed. Not a care in the world. No respect for human life. And if we want to go and bring up people's past, just make sure that you don't bring up just the victim's past, and you don't forget to bring up the police officer's past. So if we want to play that game, we can play that game all day. So let's go down that road. Derek Chauvin has a history of violent behavior as a police officer to people of color. Let's bring up that past. Let's bring up that past, Candace. If we want to talk about people's reputations, Derek Chauvin does not have a good reputation in the police force. And you notice that when they do bring up the victim's past, the people who are for the police officer, they don't bring up the officer's past. We need to ask ourselves why that is. We need to ask ourselves, why is it okay to attack the victim, but it's not okay to attack the person who killed them? And it should not matter if they have on a badge. It should not matter if they wear a uniform. Everybody in the world, we saw the video. We saw what happened. Somebody sitting there begging you, telling you that they can't breathe, telling you that they can't breathe. You are suffocating them. Not one instance in that video did the officer have any concern for his life. And I want to make another thing very clear. We have to stop this thing that we do where we have a group of people on one side for the victim and a group of people on one side for the officer. You know, you a lot of times, like, you see this happen in these incidents where it's a white police officer who kills a black person. What we should ask ourselves is, why do people have such a lack of compassion for black lives? Why is that? Why is it that when a black female goes to the hospital to give birth and is in terrible pain, why is it that the doctors have so little compassion for her life? And you can look up the statistics about African American women dying in childbirth, not getting the care that they need. Go look up those numbers. For black women, it's not about our past. When you go into the hospital to give labor, your past is not on trial there. When George Floyd got arrested for a counterfeit bill, his past should not have been on trial there. So we are not asking the right question. The question that we should ask is, why do people have so little compassion for black lives? Why did Mike Brown lay in the street? Just left the boy just laying there in the street. Why was Breonna Taylor murdered and then just left there and you hear officers say, yep, she's done? So much lack of compassion. Why is it that people care more and have more sympathy when the person is not black? And this is something that we've talked about oftentimes before, especially when we talk about diversity, when we talk about inclusion, when we talk about equity. There is this thing called a white person's tears. How that means more than a black person's tears. Why is that? I want you to ask yourself why people are so quick to defend an officer who they don't know, by the way. They're also so quick to condemn a black man who they also don't know. If you think that race is not a factor here, you are completely wrong. It's no different from what happens in the school systems, where a black kid and a white kid can do the same offense and the black kid is punished more harshly. That goes into the school to prison pipeline. That's a whole nother discussion. Not going to get into that in this video, but there's a reason for that. Why is it that when you can have a black person and a white person both get arrested, both first-time offenders for marijuana, but the black person will get more time? Why is that? The reason is because people have so little compassion for black lives. So again, if you care so much about black lives, what are you doing to help? I don't know what's going to happen with this trial. I didn't know what was going to happen with Rodney King either. We had video of Rodney King too, and they let the police officers go. They went ahead and convicted them, and when they brought it back to trial, they only brought it back to trial because people protested. Again, you have to ask yourself, why is that? So I don't know what's going to happen with this trial. I don't know what the end result is going to be, but based on what I've seen in my lifetime, I'm not going to get my hopes up. And that's sad. It's sad that in this country, we can't even expect the justice system to do what it's supposed to do. I remember Rodney King. I remember that trial. I remember seeing Rodney King get beaten on TV. And it's 2021, and here we are again.